What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For anybody new, my name is Matt Luna. I make a lot of tackle making videos, a lot of on-the-water fishing videos, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about 3 different mistakes people commonly make when trying to powder paint jigs. I've got 9 different shaky heads that I made up for this video in particular, and we're going to be featuring 3 brand new paints from Pro-Tec. These brand new paints literally just hit the market when the Bassmaster Classic was going on. This first color is called Blue Fleck. It's a brand new paint. The next color that we have is Disco Firetiger. And then the third paint that we have is Halloween. So the 3 different mistakes that we're going to be talking about in this video are: 1 is not shaking up your powder paint well enough. Number 2 is too much powder paint on your jig. And number 3 is going to be overheating your jig. Those 3 mistakes are pretty common for people, especially when they're starting out and just sometimes when you have issues. So at the end of this video, you're going to be dialed in on how to avoid those 3 different mistakes. So as I mentioned, these jigs are shaky head jigs, and they are made from the Shake It jig from Jig Molds. The model number is SRH6MSLA. And again, I always put product descriptions down in the description of my videos. It's going to be a product list, has my Jig Molds affiliate link. It's going to have the powder paint names, the jig that I poured up, the hook that I poured up. Everything that you need to do exactly what I'm doing in this video is going to be listed out in the description of today's video. If you decide to go to the Jig Molds website where my affiliate link goes to, please use that affiliate link so that way they know that I sent you and I can get credit for any sales. Something else that I want to bring your attention to while you're looking at these jigs going across the screen is that Victory hook. That is the Victory V-Lock hook in there. That thing keeps fish pinned. The specific model number for that hook is the 10798, and the hooks in this video were 4/0 hooks. So one thing you always have to do when you're powder painting your jigs is shake up your powder paint. If you're going to be powder painting your jigs directly out of the little Pro-Tec powder paint cup, which you can do, you definitely got to shake them up a lot. One of the things that I really recommend is getting yourself a fluid bed. Jig Molds does sell a fluid bed on their website. I've built my own. I've had it for a long time. I probably need to do a video showing you guys how you can do that yourself. But if you don't want to do it yourself, just want to buy one ready to go, you can buy one off the Jig Molds website. But you got to shake up your powder paint. If you don't shake up your powder paint, you're not going to be able to get that jig head all the way down in there. You're going to end up trying to swoop your jig into that powder paint, and it's going to get stuck. It's not going to go into the powder paint and get full coverage. You're end up going to get lumpy coverage at best if you get the whole jig inside of it. And lumpy coverage, in my opinion, is basically when you have too much powder paint or uneven powder paint all around your jig. So right now what I'm going to do with the Halloween color is I'm going to shake it up really, really well. I'm going to do this for probably 30 seconds. And then the less amount of powder paint that you have in there, as you use more of it, you're not going to have to shake it as much, because it's going to be moving around in there a lot more. But this is a brand new cup, so you got to really shake it to try to get it as loose as possible. So when you're powder painting jigs, you have to have some sort of a heat source. I just like to use an inexpensive heat gun. That heat gun, I can leave it on and I can do one jig right after another. Depending on how heavy or how big that jig head is, depends upon how long you need to leave it in that heat. I like to do about 10 seconds for an eighth. And then as I go higher, it's going to get longer and longer and longer. And you're going to have to just kind of gauge it dependent upon what type of heat source you're using and how hot your heat source actually gets. So one thing that I like to do with my jigs when I'm going to powder paint them is I like to hold them by a pair of pliers just like this. So that way I can keep my hand away from that heat source. And then I'm also not getting too close to the powder paint. So that way I'm not getting it all over my fingers. But this is a good way to kind of hold on to your jig. So that way you have control over it. So what I'm doing right here is I'm just putting this jig right over the top of that heat source. I'm going to give it about a 10 or a 15 count. And then we're going to go right into that powder paint. Just like so. Heat it up again so it gets on there nicely. So when you're secondarily heating up that jig after you put some powder paint on there, you want to be careful not to put it over that heat too long, because then you'll start to burn that powder paint. I like to just put it on there until everything kind of shines up nice and bright and it's looking like the color that you're going to have at the end of this entire process. I think this color is an awesome color. It's got a nice little brownish purple base with some black flake in there and some orange flake. I really think that this is going to be a perfect color when you're trying to make those PB&J colored jigs. As I'm filming this video right now, it's March, and for us, that means the spawn is just about here. March, April, May, into June, depending on where you're at in the country, the spawn is going on. And one of the things that we don't always think about that's very important during the spawn is the sunglasses that we're wearing. The sunglasses that I'm wearing when it's time to go bedfish are the Waterland bedfisher frames. Waterland designed these frames specifically for bedfishing. That's why they got that full frame right here. Cuts out a lot of light on the sides, and this lens color is also designed to help you see into the water to catch those fish that are on beds. Now, if you want to check out all the different frame styles or go and grab a pair of these bedfisher frames from Waterland, make sure to go to the waterlandco.com website and use discount code LUNA15. That discount code is going to save you 15% off everything on their website. So the next mistake that we're going to be talking about is too much powder paint on your jig. Now, a couple of issues come up when you're powder painting jigs and you get too much paint on them. One, it's not going to be as durable. There's a happy spot where you want to be, where you don't want too little powder paint, but you also don't want too much powder paint. When you have too much, it makes it easier to chip, just like when you have too little, makes it easier to chip when you're fishing it. Another issue that you have is that you're going to end up getting like a dimple on your jig. So you can either use a clamping rack like this, where you just stick the jig right into there and it clamps it and it sits upright. So a lot of times if you get just a little tiny bit of extra paint on there, it'll drip down the shaft of that hook. Now, a lot of times people hang them upside down in their toaster oven, which is what I do most of the time. If I'm doing a lot, or if I'm doing spinner baits or buzz baits, then a lot of times I'll try to make these clamping racks work. I really like these, but they're just a little bit time consuming. And if I'm doing a bunch of different jig heads at one time, I'm going to hang them upside down on the grate in the toaster oven. But what happens is when you have it upside down, a lot of times if you have too much paint, that paint's going to drip and then it's going to create like a little dimple on the bottom of your jig. So you just got to be careful when you're putting that jig into the powder paint. You don't put it in there too long with too much heat, and then it just gets too much powder paint onto that jig. So as I walk you through some of the pointers to avoid this second mistake, I'm going to be using the brand new blue Fleck powder paint from Pro-Tec. This is a really cool color as well. So the first couple things I want to talk about when it comes to not getting too much powder paint on your jig is to not overheat your jig. If you overheat your jig, then you're going to have a tendency to get too much powder paint on there, or you're going to burn the powder paint. So if you think that you put it on too long, just pause, let that jig cool down, and then put it in there. So we're just going to swishel this around inside, and that one turned out very, very well. And this is the blue Fleck color. It's got a brown base with black flake and then a bluish green color flake in there mixed in. This is a really cool color, very, very natural color, and I think a lot of people are going to be able to get a lot of use out of this blue Fleck color. So now we're moving on to the third mistake that a lot of people make when they're painting their jigs. This third mistake is overheating the jig head itself. When you overheat the jig head, you're going to end up burning that powder paint once it's onto the jig. What happens when you put that hot jig into the powder paint is that powder paint begins to melt. But if the jig's too hot, then that powder paint's going to start to burn. You're also going to collect way too much powder paint onto the head of the jig to where you're going to get dimpling right out of the cup itself. And if you have any components on there like the screw lock, it's going to be completely filled up with paint, and you're going to get your hook eye completely filled up with paint as well. Why this one's so important to avoid is because you basically make this a useless jig unless you're going to go through the process of trying to get all this paint off. Now, there are ways of doing that. You could dip this in acetone if you wanted to get this paint off, then you can reuse that jig. But if you don't want to go through that process, then you basically have to throw this jig away. Now, as I go through this mistake with you guys and give you some pointers on how to avoid overheating your jigs, we're going to be featuring the brand new Pro-Tec powder paint in the Disco Firetiger color. So one of the keys to avoiding this mistake by heating up your jig too hot is to know the size of the jig that you're using and how long it takes to get that jig hot. These are 5/16, so you want to be around that 10 to 15 second count. Like I said earlier, if you heat it up too long, you can always leave it outside of the heat for a little bit and then continue on and put it into your powder paint. Now, as I've been talking, it's probably been too long, so I'm going to heat it up just a little bit longer. And then we're going to go right into the cup. And that's the Disco Firetiger color. This one turned out pretty good as well. We would have to clean out the eye on this one, but I don't think we got too much paint on there. I think that eye will clean out just fine. This Disco Firetiger color from Pro-Tec's a pretty cool color as well. It's got that green base with some black flake, and it looks like there's an orange flake in there as well. Looks like there's something that gives off a really good shimmer effect in this green as well. I look at this and I think perch, and I think of baby bass colors. If you want to dial in that baby bass, you want to dial in that perch color, I think this Disco Firetiger color is one that you're definitely going to need. Well, that's 3 common mistakes that people make when they are learning how and having trouble painting their jigs. Take the information I gave you in this video and it will help you immensely if you're having trouble painting your jigs. Also, make sure to use my affiliate link that I have down in the description, along with my product list that outlines everything that we are using today. Check out those brand new powder paints from Pro-Tec. They are awesome powder paints. My affiliate link, like I said, is down in the description. If you go to the Do It Mold's website to buy anything after watching this video, make sure to use that link so they know that I sent you. And if you want to watch more tackle making content, please click on the video or playlist that's on the screen right now, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.